Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Becoming Anchored podcast. My name is Laura Deneen. I am your host for today's episode, and I am really thrilled to bring today's content to you all. If you're new to this podcast, we really are just about helping you move towards body peace. In our earlier episodes and seasons, we talked more about generalized mental health concerns and questions. And then in this season and moving forward, we're going to be narrowing down our niche, so to speak, to talk about body image and all that entails. And so both myself and my co-host Lauren, who joins me frequently on this show, are vulnerable and share some of our stories as well. And so we hope that this information is helpful to you. If you're new to the show, welcome. And if you are interested in therapy in the state of Tennessee, we would love to see you. And if not, we encourage you to reach out to someone local to you. Thanks for being here. Okay, so for today's episode, we are going to be talking about the link between negative core beliefs and our relationship with our bodies. And so if you've done any therapy, you might be familiar with this concept. And if you haven't, I am so happy to share what a negative core belief is and to provide you all some education on that topic. So a negative core belief typically is a belief about ourselves that develops in early childhood or what we would call our formative years or in adolescence. There can be all sorts of kinds of negative beliefs. And there are kind of underneath this umbrella of negative beliefs at large, there are themes in negative core beliefs. For example, themes of safety, themes of shame or defectiveness, themes of being powerless or helpless. So if we kind of look at this at large through that lens of this umbrella and then sub-themes that are there, examples of negative core beliefs might be, I'm unlovable, or I'm unsafe, or I'm powerless, or I'm defective, I'm weak, I'm bad. So again, the list goes on, and in our show notes, I will actually send a wonderful link that I have to the list that I use with clients around negative core beliefs and then positive beliefs that we will work on instilling in the therapeutic process. So yes, negative core beliefs develop in our childhood or adolescent years. And a lot of times they developed as a result of something that happens to us or some kind of trauma or what we would call developmental trauma. So if you're not familiar with the word developmental trauma, there's all sorts of types of developmental trauma. This can look like emotional neglect. Maybe this looks like a child growing up in a home where emotions were mocked or dismissed or minimized. And so a child in that home might minimize their emotional experiences and start to believe that, I'm so bad for having this emotion in the first place. So there's all sorts of different negative experiences that can contribute to our core beliefs, our negative core beliefs about ourselves. And being aware of our negative core beliefs is a really wonderful process to be aware of in terms of healing body image concerns. And this is for a couple different reasons. So a lot of times what can happen in the realm of negative core beliefs is that they can attach to our relationship with our bodies, okay? So before we dive into that, let's circle back around to supporting you in identifying what your negative core beliefs are. So definitely check this link out in the show notes that I will send after today's episode. But one way to first identify your negative core belief, before we start to dive into how it might be connected to your body image, is to start asking yourself how you respond when you are in pain to yourself, or how you respond when something hard happens in your life, or how you respond when you make a mistake, or how you respond when you have the knowledge that somebody might be upset with you. And a negative core belief is an I statement. And so we want to really reflect on these experiences and ask ourselves what these experiences say about us. Okay, so one way to get to our negative core belief as well is through the method of Socratic questioning. So for example, let's take the experience of someone being upset with me. This is something that we see a lot in my practice at Anchored Counseling Co. Just this difficulty tolerating emotional experiences in which we might fear somebody else doesn't like us, or maybe somebody else is upset with us. So if you go through this experience, maybe the thought is that person is mad at me. So Socratic questioning says we take that initial thought and then we ask, what does that mean, or why is that important? Well, I don't have any friends. That might be the next answer. And then we would ask a client in the therapeutic space, what does that mean, or why is that important? And then we get down essentially to the negative core belief. And a lot of times with this example specifically, a negative core belief here might be I'm unlovable. And so once we identify this, of course, with like the utmost level of compassion and understanding for a client, we can typically start to trace that negative core belief back to childhood years or formative years, and perhaps a child growing up might have felt unlovable because parents were not emotionally available. So that's how we really get down to our negative core belief. Is first we look at the present day experiences and how we respond to hardship, how we respond to distress, how we respond to what we call relational ruptures, so conflict in relationship, how we respond to making mistakes. So that's that present kind of introspection that I would encourage you all listening to do. And then we can also rewind the tape once we identify kind of that root of the issue, so to speak, and we can start to ask ourselves questions about where that negative core belief might have developed. And typically, once we start to identify negative core beliefs about ourselves, we typically return to, I would say, anywhere from like 1 to 3, maybe 4 negative core beliefs. We have these like primary negative core beliefs about ourselves. And so I would just notice where you go when you're in pain. So that is like psychoeducation 101 on really the identification of negative core beliefs. If you've never heard of this concept, I definitely encourage you to look it up. I talk a lot more about this in my trauma mini course specifically. And just a side note here, it's really important when we are doing this work to pace ourselves, to remind ourselves that this is really tough work, right? So if you've never identified your negative core belief, it can almost evoke like an additional layer of judgment or shame. So I encourage you to do this in the presence of a loved one or friend, or perhaps a helping professional that you're working with, just to have that grounded presence with you. For some clients, though, it is validating to start to recognize their negative core belief, because then we can start to know what there is to work on as well. So both responses are normal, and however you respond to discovering your negative core belief is more than okay. So just wanted to add a little, comment about that, I guess, if you will. So how is this all connected to body image experiences? So what happens in the body image realm, right? So if we have a client that is coming to us here and they are saying that they want to work on their body image, first of all, I commend them for that vulnerability and recognizing yes, I do want help in this. This is a lot of times been something that individuals have struggled with for years on end. And so it's so brave to have this goal of working on negative body image. And that's a big goal. And so this can feel daunting to a lot of clients. And I think this is honestly the reason why so many people struggle with their body image, is because the concept of body image at large is an all-encompassing realm, right? It's a big idea. And so when someone's coming to us and they're expressing that they're wanting to work on body image concerns, that is a beautiful goal, and it can also feel very overwhelming. And so in my work as a therapist, I'm all about breaking down big goals and helping them feel more attainable, sustainable, and almost having them more in like bite-sized chunks, because we're more likely to do the thing if we have a plan and if we feel capable of meeting our goal. And so one way that I will start to work with a client after, of course, I've gotten to know them, and after, of course, we've like built what we call in the therapeutic space rapport, and I really maybe have a better picture of their background, we will start to dip our toe into this concept of negative core beliefs in the context of body image. So remember that there's all sorts of things that go into the development of someone's perspective on their bodies, whether that is traumatic experiences or diet culture influences, or perhaps co-occurring disordered eating. And then there's all sorts of pieces that make up body image, whether this is how we feel about our bodies, the thoughts that we might have about our bodies, the experiences that we have in our bodies, the physical sensations that we have in our bodies, the emotion that we have towards our bodies, our ability to be embodied or not. So there's all sorts of things that go into what we do in response to body image distress. So one thing that can really help is to start to tease apart themes of how someone is talking about their body and linking it to a possible negative core belief. So let's walk through an example for today's episode. So a client might come in and they might say, like, Laura, I just hate my stomach. And that's very real, and that happens quite frequently in our offices here. So they might say this, and my response as the therapist would be, okay, well, tell me more about that. And like, that sounds really hard. So first I'm going to validate their experience, and I'm going to ask the client to guide me with more information about the distress around their stomach specifically. And then at this point, I'm also going to use that Socratic questioning and really ask them about why that is so distressing to them. So what does this mean, or why is that important to you? And then we will get down to the root of the issue, so that negative core belief, and how it might inadvertently be playing out in how the client experiences their stomach, whether this is thoughts about their stomach, whether it's like GI distress that they're having, whether it's difficulty wearing clothes that maybe are tighter fitting. Whatever it is, we're looking at how that negative core belief might be showing up in the context of how they feel about their stomach. And then, just like I mentioned earlier in the episode, we're going to look at historical experiences that might have impacted someone's present day view of their stomach. So we're going to look at, okay, have you had an experience of bullying or being mocked around your stomach? Did you watch a TV show or a movie that was influenced by diet culture where some actress or somebody said something about how female stomachs should look, or stomachs at large should look? And so we're really getting curious about all of these kind of compounding factors that go into a client's perception and experience of their stomach. And for each individual, the root of the issue might be different, right? So someone might come in and they might say, Laura, I hate my stomach. Please help me with this body image distress. And Jane's root of the issue, in air quotations, if you're listening, might be I'm unlovable. Someone else's might be I'm unsafe. Someone else's might be I'm weak. So all of our experiences are so unique to us as human beings. And so that's why, as therapists, we really can't make assumptions about what someone's negative core belief is. And so what we want to do here is really look at what might be maintaining that negative core belief. So We want to look at any present day experiences that might be maintaining this belief system about one's stomach. So we might look at body checking or body avoidant behaviors going on. We might look at hiding behaviors. We might look at perhaps putting too much value in thoughts about one's stomach. And then we are also going to rewind the tape, so to speak, and look at the historical experiences that led someone to believe XYZ about themselves. Whether it's I'm unlovable, I'm defective, I'm weak, I'm bad, I'm unsafe. And this is essentially trauma work, right? And there's lots of different wonderful trauma modalities that we can use around healing this negative core belief, whether that's through EMDR or somatic experiencing or brain spotting or inner child work. But that is the work, is to start to really rewind the tape so that we are not living out of a place of our negative core belief. So what can happen is, because these wounds that clients carry oftentimes go unhealed, they show up in the context of someone's body. And so it's twofold, right? Because I know diet culture is very real, and a lot of times people have loved ones that are commenting on their bodies or telling them how they should or shouldn't look, right? There's a lot of present day experiences that we also have to work on in the context of body image. And then we also have to work on some of those historical wounds. And what can happen is, inadvertently, and honestly, even sometimes on a subconscious level, we're taking those negative core beliefs out on our bodies. And it's almost sometimes easier or safer to take it out on our bodies and to see our bodies as the problem versus addressing the root of the issue by looking at and healing the negative core belief. And so if this is part of your story, I want you to know that I see you in that. And this might be what you've always done, right? So instead of looking at that deeper wound around the negative core belief, you've come to a place where you really just hate your body. And I'm here to challenge you to have compassion for that. And this is one way that we can go deeper. And this is that secondary question of asking ourselves, like, yes, it's about body and how we experience our body and our ability to access safety in our body and our ability to take care of our bodies. And it's also not about our body. And this is the not about our body part, meaning that a lot of times these experiences that we go through earlier in life happen to us. And then as a result, we actually learn to survive and adapt. And so it might feel safer to you to criticize your body, to experience hatred towards your body, to really just deeply, have a lot of anger towards your body. That might feel safer for you than dipping your toe back into your traumatic experiences. And so good therapy is paced, it's collaborative, and I'm here to tell you there's no rush on any of this as far as examining and working through our negative core beliefs, but it's an important part of treating body image concerns, because affirmations are wonderful. And if we have not identified or addressed or started the healing process around our negative core beliefs in the context of body image, that work is only going to go so far. So this is really the wraparound piece, the deeper work that gives this work so much meaning, is to really look at how we might be experiencing negative core beliefs. Are there themes around ourselves or our bodies that are there? And how might the identification of our negative core beliefs and moving through those negative core beliefs, how might that actually support us in moving towards body peace? I love doing this type of work with clients. Like I said, I think it's deeper work. I've found that it really supports clients in moving towards lasting change around their body image concerns. And so, I will probably be releasing more episodes about this. And I'm happy to, talk more on this topic, just because I am so passionate about it. And this was a lot of the work that my therapist did with me as we were healing my own body image distress. So thank you so much for being here today. But thanks so much for sticking with me through this episode. Your homework is to go look at that list and to start to answer some of those questions that I gave you towards the beginning of the episode around the identification of your negative core belief, and to consider working with a professional to heal some of those trauma wounds that might be there. And you can take this work as slowly as you need to. And actually, the longer that I practice, the more I really recognize the value in that. And so I encourage you to pace yourself as you do this work. I am rooting for you always, and I so appreciate you all listening to the Becoming Anchored podcast. I will see you next time. Take good care.